Hey there, you're looking kind of cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my other socials. Enjoy. The amber liquid sloshed in the glass as Joe raised it to his lips, taking another long swig. The bar's dim lighting cast shadows across his face, masking the uncertainty in his eyes. Across the sticky table, his friend Sarafa watched him with concern, her own drink barely touched. "You okay, Joe?" "You've been hitting it pretty hard tonight," Sarafa said, her brow furrowed. Joe set the glass down with a dull thud. "Fine," he slurred, avoiding her gaze. "Just thinking." "About what?" Sarafa leaned forward, elbows on the table. Joe's fingers traced patterns in the condensation on his glass. The words bubbled up inside him, fueled by liquid courage. "Can I tell you something? Something I've never told anyone?" Sarafa nodded, her expression softening. "Of course. You can tell me anything." Joe took a deep breath, the confession spilling out in a rush. I want to try being more feminine. I fantasize about wearing skirts, lipstick, getting my ears pierced. But I'm scared. What if people judge me? What if I'm not good at it?" Sarafa's eyes widened in surprise, but her voice was gentle when she spoke. "Joe, that's nothing to be ashamed of. It's okay to explore different aspects of yourself." "Really?" Joe looked up, hope flickering in his alcohol-glazed eyes. "Really," Sarafa affirmed. "If that's something you want to try, I'd be happy to help. We could start small, maybe experiment with some makeup or clothes at home where you feel safe." Joe's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thanks, Sarah. You're a good friend." The rest of the night passed in a blur of drinks and laughter, Joe's admission fading into the background of his alcohol-soaked mind. Morning light streamed through the curtains, stabbing at Joe's closed eyelids. He groaned, rolling over and burying his face in the pillow. His head throbbed, mouth dry as cotton. Fragmented memories of the previous night floated just out of reach. The shrill ring of his phone cut through the fog. Joe fumbled for it, squinting at the screen. Sarafa's name flashed, accompanied by a text. "Hey, how are you feeling? Can we talk about last night?" Joe's stomach dropped. What had he said? He typed back with shaky fingers. "Feeling rough? What happened?" The phone buzzed almost immediately. "You don't remember? You told me something important. Can I come over?" Dread settled in Joe's gut. He must have really messed up. "Sure," he replied, then dragged himself out of bed to make coffee and try to piece together the night's events. An hour later, a knock at the door announced Sarafa's arrival. Joe opened it, still in his rumpled clothes from the night before. Sarafa stepped inside, concern etched on her face. "How much do you remember?" she asked gently. Joe ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Not much. Did I say something stupid?" Sarafa shook her head. "No, not at all. You shared something personal about wanting to explore your feminine side." The memory crashed over Joe like a wave. He sank onto the couch, face burning with embarrassment. "Oh, God, I can't believe I told you that." Sarafa sat beside him, her voice kind. "Joe, it's okay. I'm glad you felt comfortable enough to share that with me. I meant what I said last night. There's nothing wrong with wanting to explore different aspects of yourself." Joe looked up, meeting her eyes. "You really don't think it's weird?" "Not at all," Sarafa assured him. "In fact, I think it's brave. It takes courage to admit something like that, even to yourself." Joe's shoulders relaxed slightly. "I've been thinking about it for a while," he admitted. I don't know where to start, or if I even should." Sarafa's eyes lit up. "What if we made a day of it? We could go shopping, maybe get your nails done, just to see how it feels. No pressure." Joe hesitated, both terrified and excited by the idea. "I don't know. Think about it," Sarafa urged. "We could keep it low-key, just between us. And if you hate it, no harm done." Joe chewed his lip, considering. The desire to explore this side of himself warred with his fear of judgment. Finally, he nodded. "Okay, let's do it." Sarafa beamed. "Great! I'll set everything up. How about next Saturday?" As Sarafa left, promising to text him the details, Joe's mind raced with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. What had he just agreed to? The week crawled by, Joe alternating between excitement and panic. By Saturday morning, he was a bundle of nerves. He changed his outfit 3 times before Sarafa arrived, honking her horn outside. "Ready for your glamour day?" Sarafa grinned as Joe slid into the passenger seat. Joe managed a weak smile. "As ready as I'll ever be." Their first stop was a small, discreet salon. Joe's palms were sweaty as they walked in, but the staff were warm and professional. Before he knew it, he was settled in a chair, a kind-faced stylist named Maria standing behind him. "So, what are we thinking?" Maria asked, running her fingers through Joe's hair. Joe looked to Sarafa for help. She stepped in smoothly. "We're going for a softer look. Maybe some layers, possibly highlights." Joe nodded, grateful for her guidance. As Maria worked transforming his shaggy cut into something more styled, Joe felt a mix of nerves and excitement. When she spun him around to face the mirror, he gasped softly. His hair now fell in gentle waves, framing his face. Subtle caramel highlights caught the light, adding depth and warmth to his natural brown. It was still recognizably him, but softer, more pretty. "What do you think?" Maria asked. Joe touched his hair gently. "I love it," he whispered. Sarafa squeezed his shoulder. "You look amazing." Buoyed by the success of the haircut, Joe felt more confident as they moved on to a nearby boutique. Sarafa helped him navigate the racks, selecting items that would flatter his frame without being too overwhelming for a first-time exploration. In the dressing room, Joe's hands shook as he slipped on a flowing, meaty skirt in a deep forest green. He paired it with a soft, cream-colored sweater that hung off one shoulder. Taking a deep breath, he stepped out to show Sarafa. Her eyes lit up. "Joe, you look incredible!" Joe turned to the full-length mirror, breath catching in his throat. The person staring back at him was different. Softer, more authentic, somehow. A smile tugged at his lips. They left the store with several bags, Joe's new wardrobe a mix of feminine and androgynous pieces that felt true to this newly emerging part of himself. Their next stop was a makeup counter at a department store. The artist, a vivacious woman named Tanya, listened attentively as Sarafa explained the situation. "First time playing with makeup?" Tanya asked Joe kindly. He nodded, nervous but eager. "Don't worry, honey. We'll start simple and natural. You're gonna love it." Tanya worked her magic, explaining each step as she went. A tinted moisturizer to even out his skin tone, a touch of blush to add a healthy glow, neutral eyeshadow to enhance his eyes, followed by a coat of mascara. Finally, a sheer pink lip gloss. When Tanya held up the mirror, Joe's eyes widened. The changes were subtle, but profound. His features looked softer, more refined. He touched his cheek gently, marveling at the transformation. "What do you think?" Tanya asked. I love it," Joe breathed. "Thank you." Their final stop of the day was a nail salon. Joe's nerves had mostly dissipated by this point, replaced by a growing sense of excitement and rightness. He chose a pale pink polish, giggling with Sarafa as they got their nails done side by side. As the sun began to set, Sarafa drove them back to Joe's apartment. "So, how do you feel?" she asked. Joe looked down at his new outfit, his freshly painted nails. He touched his styled hair, still marveling at the soft texture. "I feel like myself," he said softly. "Like I've been wearing a costume my whole life, and I'm finally taking it off." Sarafa smiled warmly. "I'm so happy for you, Joe. Or, do you want to go by something else?" Joe considered for a moment. "Alina," he said, the name feeling right on his tongue. "I'd like to try going by Alina." "Alina it is," Sarafa affirmed. "Welcome to the world, Alina." As they pulled up to the apartment, Alina felt a surge of gratitude for her friend's support and acceptance. This was just the beginning of a journey, she knew, but for the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. Alina stepped out of the car, smoothing down her skirt. The setting sun cast a warm glow over the street, and she took a deep breath of the evening air. It felt different somehow, like she was experiencing the world through new eyes. "Do you want me to come up, Sha?" Sarafa asked, leaning out the car window. Alina shook her head. "I think I need some time to process everything, but thank you, Sarah, for everything." Sarafa smiled. "Anytime. Call me if you need anything, okay?" As Sarafa drove away, Alina made her way up to her apartment. She caught her reflection in the hallway mirror and paused, still marveling at the transformation. It wasn't just the physical changes. There was a lightness in her eyes, a confidence in her posture that hadn't been there before. Inside her apartment, Alina kicked off her shoes and padded to the bedroom. She opened her closet, pushing aside the rows of button-downs and slacks that suddenly felt like they belonged to someone else. The new clothes they'd bought that day hung at the end of the rack, a splash of color and softness among the muted tones. Alina ran her fingers over the fabrics, relishing the different textures. She selected a silky nightgown in a pale lavender, purchased on a whim at Sarafa's encouragement. Slipping it on, she reveled in the way the cool fabric felt against her skin. She made her way to the bathroom, intending to wash off her makeup. But as she stood in front of the mirror, Alina hesitated. The person looking back at her was so beautiful, so authentic. She couldn't bear to erase it just yet. Instead, she picked up her phone and after a moment's hesitation, opened the camera app. Alina had never been one for selfies before, always feeling awkward and uncomfortable in front of the camera. But now, she found herself angling the phone, experimenting with different poses and expressions. Looking at the resulting photos, Alina felt a surge of emotion. There she was, not the persona she'd been projecting to the world, but her true self, finally set free. Tears pricked at her eyes, but they were tears of joy and relief. As the night wore on, Alina found herself unable to sleep. Her mind raced with possibilities, fears, and hopes for the future. How would her family react? Her co-workers? Would she be brave enough to step out into the world as her true self? She picked up her phone again, hesitating for a moment before opening her social media app. Her finger hovered over the Create Post button. It felt too soon, too overwhelming to share this with the world. But perhaps. Alina navigated to her profile settings, finding the option to change her name. She typed in Alina, her heart racing as she hit save. It was a small step, but it felt monumental. As the first light of dawn began to creep through her windows, Alina finally felt sleep tugging at her. She curled up in bed, the silky nightgown a constant reminder of the day's transformations. For the first time in as long as she could remember, she fell asleep with a smile on her face, excited for what the new day would bring. The next morning, Alina woke to the sound of her phone buzzing. She reached for it groggily, memories of the previous day flooding back as she felt the unfamiliar texture of her nightgown. A smile spread across her face as she unlocked her phone. There were several notifications, likes and comments on her profile change, messages from friends asking if she was okay. At the top was a text from Sarafa. "How are you feeling this morning, Alina?" Alina's fingers hovered over the keyboard as she considered her response. How did she feel? Excited, nervous, liberated, terrified, all at once. She settled for honesty, like I'm finally waking up to who I really am. "Thank you for yesterday." Sarafa's reply came quickly. "I'm so happy for you. Want to grab coffee and talk about next steps?" Alina hesitated. The thought of going out in public, even in her old clothes, felt daunting. But the idea of hiding away in her apartment, denying this newfound part of herself, felt even worse. "Sure," she typed back. "Give me an hour?" As Alina got ready, she found herself gravitating towards her new clothes. She selected a pair of high-waisted jeans and a flowing blouse in a soft pink. The outfit was feminine without being overly flashy. A good compromise for her first real outing as Alina. She applied her makeup carefully, following the steps Tanya had shown her the day before. It took longer than she expected, her hands shaking slightly with nerves. But when she finished and looked in the mirror, a sense of calm washed over her. This was right. This was her. Alina met Sarafa at a small cafe a few blocks from her apartment. As she approached, she saw her friend's eyes light up. "Alina!" Sarafa called, waving her over. "You look amazing." Alina slid into the seat across from her, smiling shyly. "Thanks. I feel different. Good different." They ordered their coffees, and as they waited, Sarafa leaned forward. "So how are you really doing? This is a big change." Alina took a deep breath. "Honestly, I'm terrified, but also I've never felt more like myself. It's like I've been seeing the world in black and white, and suddenly everything's in color." Sarafa reached across the table, squeezing Alina's hand. "I'm so proud of you for embracing this. Have you thought about what you want to do next?" Alina nodded slowly. "I think I want to start living as Alina full-time, but I don't know how to even begin. Work, my family, my other friends. One step at a time," Sarafa reassured her. "We can start with the people closest to you, build a support system, and there are resources available, support groups, therapists who specialize in gender identity. You don't have to do this alone." As they talked, Alina felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. With Sarafa's help, they started to sketch out a plan. Who to tell first, how to approach her workplace, steps towards medical transition if she decided that was right for her. "What about dating?" Sarafa asked gently. "Is that something you want to think about?" Alina blushed, looking down at her coffee. I don't know. I've always felt so uncomfortable dating as my old self, but now the idea is scary but also exciting." Sarafa grinned. "Well, when you're ready, I know plenty of people who would be lucky to date you." As they left the cafe, Alina felt a surge of confidence. She stood taller, her steps lighter. A few passers-by gave her curious glances, but for once, she didn't shrink away. This was who she was, and she was done hiding. "Sarah," she said as they prepared to part ways. "Thank you for everything. I don't know if I would have had the courage to do this without you." Sarafa pulled her into a tight hug. "You've always had the courage, Alina. I just helped you find it." Over the next few weeks, Alina's life transformed. She came out to her closest friends, most of whom were supportive, if sometimes confused. There were difficult conversations, moments of doubt, but through it all, Alina felt a growing sense of peace. She started seeing a therapist who specialized in gender identity, working through her feelings and fears. With her therapist's help, she drafted an email to her boss, explaining her situation and her desire to transition at work. The day she sent that email was one of the most nerve-wracking of Alina's life. She spent hours staring at her phone, jumping every time it buzzed. When her boss's reply finally came, she had to read it 3 times before the words sank in. Full support, offers to help with the transition process, assurances that her job was secure. Telling her family was harder. Her parents struggled to understand, their confusion and hurt palpable even over the phone. But they didn't reject her outright, and Alina clung to the hope that with time, they would come around. Through it all, Sarafa remained a constant support. She accompanied Alina to doctor's appointments, helped her navigate the complexities of legally changing her name, and stood by her side the first time she used the women's restroom in public. As the months passed, Alina's confidence grew. She experimented with different styles, finding a look that felt authentically her. She started hormone therapy, marveling at the subtle changes in her body and emotions. 1 year to the day after that first outing with Sarafa, Alina stood in front of her mirror, hardly recognizing the person she'd been before. Her hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders. Curves had softened her once angular frame. But more than the physical changes, it was the light in her eyes, the easy smile on her lips that marked the real transformation. She was meeting Sarafa and a group of friends, both old and new, to celebrate this milestone. As she applied the finishing touches to her makeup, Alina's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Alina, it's Maria from the salon. Sarafa gave me your number. Hope that's okay. I just wanted to say I've been following your journey on social media, and you're an inspiration. If you ever want to catch up over coffee, I'd love to hear more about your experiences. Proud of you." Alina's heart skipped a beat. She'd always thought Maria was cute, but had been too wrapped up in her own insecurities to consider the possibility of anything more. Now, though, with a smile, Alina typed back, "Thanks, Maria. That means so much. I'd love to get coffee sometime. How about next week?" Maria's response came almost instantly. "Perfect. How about Thursday at 3? There's a cute little place near the salon, Brew and Bloom. Can't wait." Alina smiled, a nervous excitement bubbling in her chest. Thursday was 5 days away. 5 days to overthink, to second guess, to wonder if this was just a friendly gesture or something more. But as she got ready for her milestone celebration with Sarafa and her friends that evening, she felt a lightness she hadn't known a year ago. She chose a floral dress that hugged her newly softened curves, paired with strappy sandals that showed off her painted toes. Her reflection in the mirror wasn't just a stranger anymore. It was her, Alina, fully realized. The celebration was a blur of laughter, hugs, and clinking glasses. Sarafa raised a toast to "the bravest person I know," and Alina blushed as her friends, some who'd known her as Jo, others she'd met along this journey, cheered. The night ended with promises to do it again soon, and as Alina walked home under the stars, she felt a quiet certainty settling in. She was ready for whatever came next. Thursday arrived faster than Alina expected. She spent the morning agonizing over her outfit, finally settling on a soft lavender sweater and high-waisted jeans, casual but feminine, a balance that felt right. Her hands trembled slightly as she applied her makeup, still marveling at how the brush of mascara or swipe of gloss could make her feel so herself. By the time she reached Brew and Bloom, a cozy cafe with mismatched furniture and the rich scent of coffee in the air, her nerves were a live wire. Maria was already there, sitting at a corner table with a steaming mug in front of her. Her dark hair was swept into a messy bun, and she wore a bright yellow sundress that made her look like sunshine personified. When she spotted Alina, her face lit up with a grin. "Alina, you made it!" Maria stood, pulling her into a quick, warm hug. "You look amazing." "Thanks," Alina said, her voice catching slightly as she returned the hug. Maria smelled faintly of jasmine and hair product, a comforting mix. "You too." They settled into their seats, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. Maria asked about Alina's journey, how she'd felt that first day in the salon, what it was like to come out to her friends and family. Alina found herself opening up, the words spilling out as Maria listened with genuine interest, her brown eyes soft and attentive. "I remember you that day," Maria said, stirring her latte. "You were so nervous, but there was this spark in you, like you were on the edge of something big. I'm so glad I got to be a tiny part of it." Alina blushed. "You were more than a tiny part. That haircut. It was the first time I saw myself, really saw myself." Maria reached across the table, her fingers brushing Alina's for a brief electric moment. "I'm honored," she said softly. The touch lingered in Alina's mind as they moved on to lighter topics, favorite movies, music, the ridiculous things clients said at the salon. By the time they finished their second cups of coffee, the sun was dipping low, casting golden light through the cafe windows. "I had a really good time," Maria said as they stepped outside. "Can we do this again?" Alina's heart skipped. "I'd love that." Maria's smile widened. "How about dinner next time? Saturday night?" "Dinner sounds perfect," Alina replied, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. As they parted ways, Maria with a little wave and a promise to text, Alina felt a thrill she hadn't known in years. Was this a date? Did Maria see her that way? The questions swirled, but beneath them was a growing certainty. She wanted to find out. Saturday night found Alina pacing her apartment, the lavender nightgown swapped for a sleek black dress that clung to her hips. She'd spent an hour on her makeup, perfecting a smoky eye Tanya had taught her, and her hair fell in loose waves. When Maria arrived to pick her up, she looked stunning in a red wrap dress that accentuated her curves, her hair down and framing her face. "You clean up nice," Maria teased, her eyes sparkling as she took Alina's hand to lead her to the car. Dinner was at a small Italian place with dim lighting and candles flickering on every table. The food was delicious, pasta dripping with sauce, wine that loosened their tongues. But it was Maria's laughter, her easy touch on Alina's arm, that made the night unforgettable. They shared stories of awkward first dates and childhood dreams. And when Maria's knee brushed Alina's under the table, neither pulled away. After dessert, Maria suggested a walk by the river. The night air was cool, the water reflecting the city lights as they strolled side by side. When their hands brushed, Maria laced her fingers through Alina's, her grip warm and sure. "Is this okay?" Maria asked, glancing at her. Alina nodded, her throat tight with emotion. More than okay. They stopped near a bench, the river lapping softly in the background. Maria turned to face her, stepping closer. "I've wanted to do this all night," she murmured, then leaned in. Thanks for watching. The rest won't be viewable on YouTube, so check out Patreon if you want more. I hope you have a wonderful day, my cutie.